Welcome to another episode of RPG Archive. We've got the unofficial co-host of the show, Teddy, aka Majority.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be here. Dragon Quest V for the archive.
I'm super excited. Last time we spoke, we did Dragon Quest IV. What'd you think of that one?
That one is a childhood favorite of mine, and by childhood I mean my mid-20s. But yeah, I enjoyed replaying it, but really more so to get down the path to play this one, because this one is the one that hit home when I first tried it.
Excellent. Yeah, this is a big one. Man, there's a lot to cover today. We're doing Dragon Quest V. Make sure you check out Teddy's channel, Majority. It's on YouTube. He's got the most subscribers out of our little group. So
used to be you, though.
Wow, doing something
your
right.
Overwatch stuff.
Yeah, it was our Destiny 2 blow up video.
Yeah.
And then we also do the button mappers, so go check that out. And that has our friend Alex from TurboZone. So we have a lot of fun over there. I think by the time this releases, we'll have a new game talk. So go check it out.
Oh yeah, and to listeners who haven't subscribed yet, who are new to the channel, subscribe.
Yeah,
Talk all things RPGs. Spencer is the archiver. He's the primary RPG archiver.
Yeah, if you like RPGs, I mean, what are you doing if you haven't subscribed?
Dragon Quest? Yeah, man.
I mean,
you
come on.
Come to the right place. Come on, man.
This is like a slam dunk.
Basically, it's a win-win, right? It's win for you, win for us. Dragon Quest V.
Come on. We got a hell of a show. Like I said, we're going to go into the nitty gritty on Dragon Quest V. We've got the history. We've got the game itself. We've got the legacy. Let's start with the development. Ready to kick right in?
Kick away. Field goal.
All right. This comes from an interview from Shmuplations. You know, I love them. This could be 1990 or 91. I forgot to put the notes on that, but it's somewhere before the release. This is an interview with Hori and Miyamoto, and they're talking about how much space it takes up on the SNES. And I found something in here kind of interesting. Well, there's a funny dynamic of this interview because Miyamoto, obviously being a big Nintendo guy, has to praise Nintendo, and he can't say that the size issue's bad. And Hori's trying to say that the size issue's bad. So there's a little bit of disconnect in their conversation. But they said, will Dragon Quest V be different from previous entries now that it's on the Super Famicom? Hori said, the storytelling part will be the same as the Famicom, but naturally we're going to put a lot of effort into the presentation. And they said, could you give some examples? Hori said, with more RAM, we can now do a lot of things that weren't possible before due to memory limitations. Miyamoto chimed in. He said, indeed, the large working RAM on the SFC, the Super Famicom, is, in fact, its biggest allure to developers. Effects like sprite rotation, shrinking, and enlarging are all possible now. Hori would counter it. They start talking about audio, and Hori says, that's very true. However, there's a problem with how much memory sampling takes up. To test it out at Chunsoft, we sampled the sound of breaking glass, and it ate up 6 kilobytes of memory on the SFC. We could fit 5 or 6 towns into that space. Miyamoto said, yeah, memory is still a real issue. I think you can use these sounds in a variety of interesting ways, though. In a dungeon, for instance, if players hear a bell chime off to the right, it could be a nice hint. So, looks like memory is still an issue. And this might be a reason, I mean, we talked about this before, but why Dragon Quest V didn't even come out in the West.
Sure. It's mostly speculation for us on that front. Wikipedia doesn't have the appropriate citation for that reason. Apparently was given, like there were issues programming it, and presumably, according to this interview, we could speculate that maybe some of that is due to the music. I did listen to a bit of the Super Famicom soundtrack. I haven't played that version. I would like to one day. There are a bunch of English translations out there, but you know, the music does sound strikingly similar to the symphonic version. I don't know. Have you heard the Super Famicom version of the soundtrack?
No, not at all.
It's actually really close, and I was really surprised by that. Obviously, it's like in more of a MIDI style with like keyboard sounds, but I was really surprised by how well. I don't know. It's weird because I'm comparing old version to the new version, saying the old version is being like the new version, but Really, the new version is basically the old version, just enhanced.
Right.
Um, it's not just like a simple like, doo, 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 doo. It's actually dun 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 dun. They have like all that range of sound effects in there. So I was really surprised by that. As far as the ideas of like RAM, memory, presentation, yeah, this is a damn impressive game on like every front. Storytelling, that's what they kick off with. That's what this game is renowned for. I loved the storytelling in Dragon Quest V, and I think it's just phenomenally well done. They say it's like game as the Famicom. I say it's better. So
I agree. I think it's definitely an evolution, not a copy. And we'll get more
mhm.
into that in a little bit. One interesting last note from Miyamoto on this, and much more should be possible now with the Super Famicom. Games aren't just things you play with your eyes and hands. They should also involve your ears and even your whole body. Here we see an early 90s already planning the Wii.
Thanks, Miyamoto. Galaxy map out coming soon.
That's funny. It's true. In a 1992 developer interview, there's a lot of meat here. This is with the supervisor of Dragon Quest V. He's worked on a lot of the Dragon Quests, all of them really, and he's in varying roles, including director and programmer. But now
Ichi
he's
Nakamura.
the supervisor,
Okay.
and they had a good interview with him with a lot of really interesting talking points. We'll just try to break down the big ones. Given the shift in hardware from Famicom to Super Famicom, what kind of changes can we expect to see from Dragon Quest IV to V? The biggest gameplay change is probably the ability to have monsters in your party and level them up. Also, with the new Super Famicom hardware, we can express so much more now. Obviously, that includes better graphics, but the music too is much closer to live orchestra. However, because Dragon Quest V is part of a series, there are some things we decided not to change in order to maintain that familiar atmosphere. Something like the black and white window menu interface, for instance. Many people feel that's the iconic face of Dragon Quest.
Okay. What would you like to talk about first from that?
I think it's I think it's a little bit weird that he said the first thing is the ability to have monsters in your party. I think that's like I don't think that's the answer anyone is looking for and the biggest changes, but I think it has to
Yeah.
be graphics.
Yeah.
What about
Okay.
you?
I mean, the monster thing is huge, and you could see like why it because like that took off right with the Pokemon era, like the idea of collecting them all, and so this is kind of an early indicator of that, I think. And also, I think I remember in Dragon Quest IV. Do you remember with Ragnar's quest, you would do part of it with Healy, the
Hmm.
Heal Slime.
Yeah.
Maybe that was like really popular back in the day. People were like, "Oh, I want to play with the monsters more." So maybe this is like born out of that. So like they were like, let's make a whole thing where they have like the Monty's monsters.
Yeah. It's genius.
Hmm.
Obviously it's successful because there's a whole series on it. We'll get more into the monsters later. But to
You are
me,
right that he didn't answer the question correctly because they're talking about hardware changes. And he talks about gameplay.
yeah, he's like, yeah, we have monsters now. It's
What are you, a politician?
like I just whenever somebody's asking like when you go from like PlayStation 1 to PS2 and everyone's super
Yeah,
excited and everyone's like, what are we gonna get to do now? And he's like, well, we have these cool new shooting mechanics. Like
right.
everyone's like, no, we want to talk about the cool graphics and the awesome hardware and yeah.
Maybe he just was afraid to answer that because like this is fresh meat for the super. You said a lot of meat, right, in the interview. This is fresh meat for the Super Famicom, Super Nintendo. It had been out for what, a year at this point?
So
D2.
Famicom comes out in November of 1990. So yeah, a little over a year, somewhere like that.
So they're probably looking for like, okay, what's going to be the evolution to for Dragon Quest here? Because Dragon Quest IV was on the NES,
Hmm.
right? And
Yep.
so like they're really like maybe it's kind of like just a lose lose answer because it's like, well, what can you say that really did upgrade? Because Dragon Quest IV did look really good. I mean, five does look like a little more palatable, I guess you would say,
Hmm.
but not by much. Because like, how do you answer that in like a way that appeases the fans? I guess.
I I like that he talks about at the end, like the black and white window menu interface. Like, I don't know. There's not much to say there. It's just I think that's interesting that he thinks that that's important to keep in place. I think you
Mm.
just toss that as soon as you can. I think it looks. I don't. I look at the past games and that makes me think it looks archaic and old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, speaking generally, what are some of the most important things to you when designing an RPG? He says, well, speaking for Chunsoft, we place a lot of importance on creating the highest quality programming for any game we're working on. We take great care to make sure the gameplay systems feel natural and intuitive to the player. Other aspects of the game may be fun, but if the button response is bad or the scrolling feels weirdly off or slow, then players will feel irritated. We do our best to stamp out things like that. So I think that's an interesting answer because they're saying like they're talking about designing an RPG and he's really talking about making sure that systems feel clean, not
Mhm.
necessarily the mechanics.
Mm.
I
I
think
don't know. Was this an issue? Like, can you think of where this might have been an issue with other games?
well again, I think all games in the past are very difficult for me to play. Like the quality of life improvements over the years, like it's so hard for me to go back to anything in the NES, even sometimes the Super Nintendo.
Even you know what? It's weird because I know I'm like huge Dragon Quest fan, but if you ask me to play those NES ones, I know Reddit don't hate me, but I prefer to play the modern versions.
Majority, that's his YouTube channel. Go and leave him some nice comments on any video that he does.
I will play them, but the quality of life improvements from the DS, the PlayStation, etc. onwards are great. Even like the Super Nintendo versions. You know, one quality of life thing that I really like because, like, you know, I play a lot of games, so I'm worried one day I'm going to get carpal tunnel and never be able to play games again, right? Unless
Mhm.
it's on the Wii, like Miyamoto wanted. Uh,
Playing with your body.
I love that in Dragon Quest to progress text, you don't have to only press one button. You can use the directional pads, you can use the shoulder buttons, you can use any button. It will progress the text on screen. And it's just like simple things like that make it like that much more like enjoyable for me, especially playing a story heavy turn-based RPG because a lot of it is reading. A lot of it is digesting the material. So I don't want to feel like, pressed to press, and like
Mhm.
keep pressing the same button. I get tired after a while. And I think about it. I think about, oh, I'm pressing this button. But Dragon Quest facilitates that for me. And I think seeing that carry through even to the most modern Dragon Quests, I love that they do that. So I appreciate that they take the time make sure that everything is natural and intuitive,
Well,
even
and
from a hardware perspective.
yeah, we're looking at it from the future, like 30 years later or whatever, however long it is, and it's easy to be like, well, that's weird that he's talking about that when they're asking about designing an RPG. Like we're talking about gameplay more, we think, but it is interesting because I mean, this is Dragon Quest. They're the ones that shouldered all the how do you make a video game slash RPG, like how do you do that, and so his mindset is probably more rooted in how do we just make this thing playable so people will actually play an RPG and sit down and look at stats all day. And I guess that really makes more sense for his time and place. I mean, obviously nowadays, I mean, we could just create one in 2 seconds that does that kind of stuff and but he built the template for it. So I guess it does make more sense that he would talk about that.
Right. And these guys, they are almost in a sense the first ones to do it. When we talked about Dragon Quest 1, we modeled it off Ultima or
Yeah.
whatever, or like the one with the vampire on the front. I don't even remember what it was called. Wizardry.
Hmm.
They were modeling these off of WRPGs, computer RPGs. So in a sense, they are figuring out like how to continue improving the formula. It's not like they just get stale with it.
Yeah. This one I thought was really interesting, and we have a lot of okay. We have a lot of friends. We have a nice community, and a lot of them really like anime. And then we get posed this a lot when we talk about Dragon Quest. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this question. What do you think about using anime tropes and other influences in video games? And Nakamura responded, I think it's a little misguided. Dragon Quest has all manner of events and scenes, but if we tried to make it look like an anime or something, I think it would completely change the world we've created. It's better to find new modes of expression that fit into and work within the aesthetic we've always used. If someone wants to see anime, why not watch a normal anime video, we get this all the time, and I get this a lot because I I'm not a fan of anime, like almost at all. There's very very few, and people go like, "But I don't get it because your favorite games are like Akira Toriyama did the artwork for. He's an anime guy." But I don't. So for some reason, people just can't separate the anime from the game.
Let's clarify something. Dragon Quest is not anime.
Yeah,
There is an anime. There is a manga. Video games are not anime in the slightest. Now, you could say, okay, the Japanese Super Famicom box arts, and especially like at this time, like they started to actually make the box arts, well, I guess it for the US we didn't see them, so it doesn't make a difference. But like from 1 through 5, they were using Akira Toriyama's artwork primarily on the box art. You don't see that in like cutscenes. You don't see these exaggerated battle scenes. It's not Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is very much, anime and in its themes and also like in the style and the artwork. Everything like we've talked about how Dragon Quest is more of a normal experience where you kind of go through like the human lens and you see everything is like you really feel like everything by the end is earned. All of your stat upgrades, your weapon
yep,
upgrades, everything. Anime is not like that. The most funded and AAA animes, they're really exaggerated. You see that more in Final Fantasy and maybe not the early ones, but like from 7 on, especially.
mm-hmm.
So I agree with this. I think even if you look at like, Chrono Trigger, which on the PlayStation 1 has, the cutscenes that are actually like anime based. You don't really see that in Dragon Quest. You do see moments that like it starts to go into cutscenes, etc., but they're still using the in-game graphics engine. They're not producing anime visuals.
Mm-hmm. And as games progress, we do have anime style games like Persona is there, and the Tales of series is super anime. But they don't feel like Dragon Quest. Like Dragon Quest certainly has its own feel that is, like you said, much more toned down, much more lifelike. And it seems like honestly, Dragon Quest, which is ironic because of Akira Toriyama's work, but they seem to go out of their way to make it not not like cartoony and not like over the top,
Mm.
which I always admired.
Mm.
Like they had every opportunity to go crazy, and they don't. Everything's really
Mm.
muted and quiet.
Of course, there are animes that are more down to earth. I'm not saying there isn't, but the style of Dragon Quest is really like it's not that cartoony. It's and I guess you could say once it hits the 3D era, maybe. But again, there may be like little moments in like 11 where suddenly you start getting like the charging or whatever for like I forget what they call it, like your pep
Mm-hmm.
meter.
Yeah,
Like you don't really see that until the latest Dragon Quest games.
yeah.
It'll be a different conversation then. But for now, no, I don't see it.
They asked him on a similar note. Some people say that video games are already surpassing anime and movies as a medium. Nakamura said, "No matter how powerful computer graphics get, and no matter how beautiful the animation may become, I don't think it will hold a candle to actual anime. The original appeal of computer games was their interactivity, how the player reacts to the computer, and vice versa. Seeing how the computer reacts to the player. This is something that traditional media can't really do. I think we must never forget the importance of that interactivity when we make video games." Kind of backs up what we were talking about. It just the complete separation of anime versus the video games we play. And while the style might have anime influences, it is a video game, and that's why I like it, and I think you like it, and it's like, and what separates it, why I don't have to like anime and video games.
Agree. I have nothing more to say.
Yep. Um, they go on to ask, how do you feel about battle systems and RPGs? Nakamura says, I feel like we've exhausted a lot of the possibilities, the low hanging fruit. I know some developers who have tried novel things like combining monsters and such. I think that's an SMT reference.
Gotta be. It's the only other monster tamer up to this point.
And I wonder if you could combine that. You must have been able to fuse that early. I think you could.
I haven't played the first ones, but I know that he jacks this in Dragon Warrior Monsters.
There you go. Um, like Mighty Monsters, in terms of magic and items, a lot of the general territory has been mapped out now. Ah. Expanding
About
beyond this frame is going to be quite difficult, I think. Um, do you think that at this point in RPGs, so we're talking Dragon Quest 1992, Dragon Quest
292.
5, they had hit like the baseline of what RPGs would become? Or do you
Right.
think there's more evolution for the basic structure?
This is a question for me or for him?
For you.
I think this is the baseline for RPGs at this time. This is the pinnacle for turn-based RPGs,
Mm-hmm.
in my eyes. Although I can't speak to the Final Fantasies, but I can speak to the storytelling in this game. And to me, Dragon Quest V is an achievement, and I don't know if that's something we'll talk about later as we get into the episode.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think
when you say like evolution, like what or the baseline, do you mean like in terms of graphical fidelity or what?
more of the systems, because graphics just kind of go with the flow of time and they just kind of change. I think with the systems they might be there, but I think one thing that the Super Nintendo pioneered was the active battle system, where it involves time, like like a time thing. It's like Chrono Triggers or Final Fantasies. I think four had it. It's been a minute. Yeah, I'm pretty sure four had it.
Mm.
And I think that set more of a standard. And I think Dragon Quest V is more just an evolution of the NES versions. It's a weird question, I know. I was trying to pull something out of that, but yeah, I think five is an example of the best things they could have done on the NES, upgraded to a Super Nintendo, and then I think some of the systems that Square did really pushed forward on what was possible. And then finally, how do you think RPGs will evolve from here? Nakamura says, in terms of more interesting stories and settings, I think many unexplored avenues remain there to keep RPGs moving along. The reason RPGs have become so popular today is because they let players feel like they are acting in their own drama. For video games whose key point of interest is their dramatic story, there's still plenty of ground left to explore, and I do think that kind of drama makes for the most fun. For one, I think we'll likely see more non-medieval fantasy games in the future.
Wasn't wrong about that.
Well, I think we stuck to medieval for a long time. It's very hard.
In the series, sure, but I mean, Chrono Trigger is after this. No,
Yeah.
you
It's
can call that it's a
well,
time warp. I would say it's primarily like sci-fi, apocalyptic in a sense. Modern, Earthbound is modern. Um,
Final Fantasy dabbled in it.
I
It's weird.
already alluded to SMT, so you
No,
know.
yeah, SMT has never been medieval, so there you go. I think you might be right on that. It's just that it seems to be very hard to get out of medieval. Even today, I mean, the biggest RPGs, the newest one was Tales of Arise. It's they're like, it's weird. They turn in like medieval futuristic hybrids, because
Mm,
all of them have like I think Tales of Arise has like guns in it, like futuristic looking explosives and stuff. And
mm.
it's like there's always one foot rooted in medieval, and then they do something else. Because I mean, they get characters even in the future ones, they have swords and stuff. They
Mm.
just can't get over that trope.
You know what? It's this stuff's rooted in fantasy and sometimes in sci-fi. I think is the primary thing.
Yeah.
Think of like Nino Kuni too. Not Nino Kuni 2, just Nino Kuni. But I feel like there's like some fantastical elements there, like the beast kind of thing, and I guess even like your Etrian Odysseys, right?
Hmm.
Your medieval knights venturing out into the world on quests. So something about in Japan, just I guess that being kind of a no desired like kind of portrayal or something. I don't know.
It's so romanticized.
Hmm?
Even but even like outside of video games, like Star Wars is still really a medieval story. Like it's got like swords and it just happens to take place in space. I
Mm.
don't know. I
Well, that's
guess
the thing with Star Ocean, right? It's like it should be a extraterrestrial adventure, but it's all rooted on Earth.
Yeah.
That's why I hate it. I want to go to space, damn it.
We'll find you a nice space RPG one day.
Infinite space. There we go.
You ready to talk about the release?
Oh yeah.
All right. Game comes out in Japan on September 27th, 1992. In Korea in late 1992.
Oh, we got a Korean release. Sick.
Yeah.
We should know more about that. Does it even work on Super Famicoms? Korean carts?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Hmm.
It did release also on the PlayStation 2 in Japan on March 25th, 2004. Nintendo
So
DS.
sad. Where's that?
Yeah, we didn't get it. Nintendo DS, it came out on July 17th, 2008. And then everywhere else it released February of 2009.
But in Japan, 2008.
Yeah. And then Android, iOS in Japan in December 12th, 2014, and then worldwide January 22nd, 2015.
Were you aware, like, I think it was like 5 years or so, Square Enix did a restock of the DS version on their website?
No. That's
They
awesome.
did. I actually managed to acquire another copy of 4 and 5 at that time. I held on to them because they're pretty damn valuable today. But no, I still have my copies that I play on the DS, so I'm happy about that. And those are almost arguably the most superior versions, but we can talk about that.
Absolutely. I'm trying to find something real quick for something we'll talk about. There we go. All right. Let's talk about some of these versions, and you probably know these better than me. But we'll talk about the PS2 version. That's the first remake. Because obviously the first version is the original, and we'll talk about that in depth in a second. But actually, we played the DS version, and I played the mobile, but it's really similar. But the PS2 version brought some interesting additions. It features 3D graphics that are similar to Dragon Quest VII, but it utilizes the extra PlayStation 2 graphical capabilities. The hero and his companions have to fight more monsters than they did in the original, but the limit has been increased from 3 to 4.
As far as your character party, so
Which is
on the Super Famicom, you could only, and it's so weird because on Dragon Quest IV on the NES, you could have 4 party members. But I guess in terms of the space limitations on the Super Famicom, you could only have 3.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Like they had to deal with the downgrade.
That's so wild. Also, there are only 40 monsters available to the player's party in the Super Famicom version due to ROM limitations. PS2 does not suffer from that. Does that increase?
71.
71? Okay. So yeah, it is very weird that the original only had 3 party. I can't imagine playing this game with 3 party members. It seemed like
It's so much more difficult.
Yeah.
I think that would be, there were actually a couple challenging boss battles. Bjorn, I couldn't imagine taking down Bjorn with 3 party members.
Oh my
But
God.
we'll talk about this a little later, but I would have liked a little bit more challenge in the end.
Mm.
So maybe this would have been decent. It might have like fit under that kind of Dragon Quest 2 theme, where it's like really freaking difficult. And like it kind of just humanizes your party.
Humanizes?
You still have the wagon, right? You still have 8 party members that you can pick from. So
Mm-hmm.
really not as bad as Dragon Quest 2. Dragon Quest 2 is just cruel.
Another new feature in the remake is the famous local trinkets museum, where the player has to collect local specialties from all around the world.
Nick Nakatoria. That does not compete to the mini medals, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
Mini medals are way better. But I did think it was cool that like this it had this extra layer of collectability.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was nice. Did you participate in this much? I didn't really do it.
A little bit. I did almost the full first floor of items. Most of them were just in my inventory. It tells you if it's a knickknack or not. So it's like, whatever. Not useful. So like after.
Do you get in-game bonuses
a certain
from this?
point? I don't remember. You get people who visit the museum. I don't remember if you get actual items for it though.
Weird. The DS game uses the same engine as the DS remake of. Oh, and these are all done by Arte Piazza, right? Awesome company. I mean, because they just basically make Dragon Quest. But on May 20th, 2008, Square Enix opened up the North American site featuring the remakes, acknowledging the game would see release, including the
By the way,
remake.
I have the treasures that you would unlock from the Nick Nakatoria.
Okay.
1,000 gold coins if you fill 18 pedestals.
Whoa.
That's nothing. Mini medal. And 2 TNT tickets.
That's it?
Oh, but then you also, at the inn, you make 10 gold coins per person. Maybe that's how much you're spending. I don't know.
Oh, 10 gold coins as they walk into the thing. And
I don't know if it's that or if that's how much you pay to stay there. It's on how many people are in your party.
Yeah, you can also, now it's permanently upgraded to 4 members in your party instead of 3. And also there's a third girl, Deborah, that you can choose to marry, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Talking about the DS version, right?
Yeah. And that one, well, you just described her as a character that nobody would pick. We'll talk about that more.
Okay.
In a second. All right. When the game released on the Super Famicom, its sales were globally, and by the globally I mean in Japan and then in Korea, 2.79 million. So about 2.8 million. Almost
those 2.79.
Yeah, almost exclusively in Japan.
0.78 were in Japan. 0.01 were others. So I guess just Korea. Maybe China.
Yeah. Comparatively, I thought this was interesting, and I wonder what the explanation is. For Dragon Quest IV, it actually sold 3.12 million worldwide. And 3.03 million in Japan. I wonder if it's because people didn't have the Super Famicom yet, or like it just didn't have the built-in audience yet, of console owners.
Do you know what the trajectory is as far as sales for 1 through 4? Did it go was it steady or did it go down?
I could look that up really quick. Okay. Why is it listed like this? Okay. Dragon Quest 1. This is going to be so difficult because I don't know exactly how it's breaking it down. But the first one was 3 million.
Japan. Or globally.
The second one was 2.5 million.
Japan or globally?
Japan, it was 2. Okay, here we go. This is better numbers. Oh, and that was because it included the giveaway on the first one. So in Japan, right. I think I'm reading this right. Japan, it was for Dragon Quest 1, it was 1.5 million. And these will all be for Japan. We'll just use those because those are the biggest ones. And then in Dragon Quest 2, it was 2.4 million, so we got a 0.9 million increase. 3 in Japan, it was 3.8 million. So that's a 1.4 million increase. 4, it was 3.1 million, so it's actually a decrease.
But that's globally. Japan, it's 3.03.
This thing says 3. Maybe it's just rounding. This rounding.
I'm looking at the image that you have in the document, but okay.
Right. It might. The website I'm using is just a big wiki of VG sales, so it might just be a rounding thing. But 3 million-ish. And then 5, 2.8. So it actually is decreasing in sales.
So it went from 1.5 to 2.4 to 3.8 down to 3.
Down to 3.
3 and then down to 2.8. So yeah, a decrease. Interesting, but I mean the level of the decrease is not high enough for me to too questionable about it. Certainly not North American numbers for the previous Dragon Quest games.
Let's not even look at those numbers. It would be so like such bad data to look at that, because obviously it starts at 1.5 million because it was given away, and then everything after that is abysmal.
Yeah, same word.
It does increase for 6. It goes up to 3.2 million. And then looks like for 7 it starts an upward trajectory. It got to 4 point. So there was looks like a dip in that NES, end of NES, Super Nintendo beginning, or Super Famicom beginning stages. Then it went back up. But by no means are these numbers disappointing. It might be less, but we can get into that in a second. Dragon Quest, the DS version, sold 1.57 million worldwide. Again, mostly in Japan. 1.36 million in Japan. PS2, 1.8 million. Jesus, this thing sold so well in so many different releases.
I think it's worth noting that DS version is the first time anyone outside of Eastern Asia has access to Dragon Quest V. There were fan translations up to that point, but official releases. And the number that purchased it on the DS, 0.17 million for North America and 0.02 million for Europe. I find it interesting that Europe gets it, because if I'm looking at the Dragon Quest IV data, there is no sales for this game in Europe. It's 0.00 million. So is this the first Dragon Quest game for Europe?
Well, I didn't list the 4 sales for
DS one.
Yeah. So it could have been, but this is kind of the same thing. It's like they were all released pretty much after each other. So yeah, these might have been the first for Europe. I don't know that for a fact, but it's possible.
Interesting.
Not making a big splash, which is unfortunate.
Not over here, but hey, Japan, get up.
Keep it up over there. So when I said that it is still impressive in Japan, I meant it, because if you look at the top selling games in 1992 for Japan, this is not for America because it didn't come out, so there's no point in bringing it up. Dragon Quest V is number 1 at 2.8 million. For comparison, Final Fantasy V is number 2 at 2 million. 2 million plus.
Just blew it out of the water by almost 1 million, like 150%.
Think of this would be unheard of in America.
Yeah.
Super Mario Kart is number 3 at 2 million plus. So in America,
RPGs though.
In America, there is no RPG that could beat Mario Kart. It just wouldn't happen.
Though Breath of the Wild is not an RPG, so whatever. But I mean, it's if you want to go down that road.
Yeah. Street Fighter 2 is number 4, again 2 million plus. Romancing Saga is 1.17.
How is that? Romancing Saga?
I don't know.
It's an RPG this year. Like, this. So this is what it's going up against. Final Fantasy and Romancing Saga. Because the NES or even the Famicom, I mean, are they that RPG heavy? No. We said Dragon Quest IV might have been the best RPG on the system. So you asked before if this was the baseline. I think it is.
Yeah. I mean, at
this
time, point,
92.
This is the flag bearer. This is their like what big game. This is their big game. Like, this is their Madden. This is crazy.
Miyamoto has to sit down in this interview.
Yeah, he's forced to.
Like biting his teeth, like, I freaking hate RPGs. God damn it. Consumers buy more Mario Kart. Right, so I'd love the first chapter. You play as Ragnar.
Yeah. I thought it was too hard. I couldn't get past the slime guy. Isn't that weird? Like in America, I didn't pull it up, but I'd be very curious. I bet you in America, the number 1 game is Super Mario World.
Yeah.
And maybe Super Mario Kart. But in here, the top 2 games are RPGs not made by Nintendo. Right? And then, the Romancing Saga down here. And then
South Korea, interestingly enough, has Street Fighter 2 as their number one.
Yeah, for their Super Comboy.
What?
I don't know.
I want one.
Super Comboy.
That's new.
Number 6 was Super Mario Land 2 for the Game Boy.
Good game.
Mario Paint for Super Famicom. And then Dragon Ball Z. I'm not going to try that. For Super Famicom. Then Kirby's Dream Land. And then number 10 is Super Batter Up. I'm guessing that's a baseball game. Dude, it's RPG land over there in Japan. They never had the Final Fantasy VII Renaissance we had. They've just had it from day one. It's crazy.
Do have sort of a revelation about this data, though. If you look at the combined total sales for their top 10, 3, 5, 7, 9, just about 10 million games per unit sold.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big year for gaming, even in Japan. Again, it has to be proportional to their population. I think when we looked at the America data, like it was pretty low as well. I think the transition to Super Nintendo, I think maybe just families were like, just bought Famicoms because it was just like, oh, that's the cool new thing, right?
Yeah.
Versus the Super Famicom was really a gamer's console. Maybe like it started with GameCube syndrome for the first 2 years. I don't know, speculation, but
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe the Super Famicom was for those that it was for the select part of the audience of the NES that wanted to keep going.
Mhm.
And the NES, like the Wii, right? Like the Wii U got everybody. And then the Wii U well,
not talking about that one.
This is Super Famicom, the Wii U of the NES era.
Confirmed.
Let's look at the reception here. Obviously, sales, it did great. Critical response. Dragon Quest V was met with critical acclaim. Famitsu's panel of 4 reviewers gave the original Super Famicom version ratings of 9, 10, 9, and 8 out of 10. Who's that 8 guy? Adding up to 36 out of 40 overall. It's made it one of the 3 highest rated video games of 1992, along with SMT and World of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. What?
Okay.
Okay. Dragon Quest V was also one of the only 11 games to have received a score of 36 out of 40 or above up until 1992.
Wow. Worth it.
To remake did well. The way the story is divided by different periods of time has been praised, something that has appeared in very few video games, even since. The game's execution of its coming-of-age theme has also been praised, with Gamasutra stating that never has it been executed so magnificently. Why am I suddenly not able to pronounce that word?
Magnificently. You
Magnificently.
You had it the first time. Yeah.
As Dragon Quest V. Dragon Quest V has also been acknowledged as Yuji Horí's favorite in the series. Yeah. So it looks like everyone seems to praise its narrative structure. In looking at the SNES reviews, yeah, it's 36 out of 40. That's really it. Back then, they weren't reviewing it. If we look at the DS, we got a lot more data here. Looks like an average of about 8, somewhere between 8 and 9 out of 10.
Yeah, but you're looking at it like different time periods. Like SNES, even in the SNES era, when it was top of the charts, 36, 90, and 4 stars from what the hell is Honest Gamers? I don't know. But nobody's given this thing a perfect score. Then in the DS era, people are even harsher. You're seeing like scores in the 8s, 8.5s, 84 for Metacritic, but what the hell is Metacritic?
I could see that. Just not adapting to the archaic, some of the older mechanics of it. Sure.
Oh, the phone gamers seem to like this though. The iOS is giving this 5 stars, A's, like a mostly high 4.5. So these phone gamers know they got taste. I'm not hating.
Yeah. Okay. You ready to talk about the game?
Let's do it.
All right. Nitty gritty.
Sit up for this one.
Yeah. The game starts out with you on a boat. You're going to
Wait a sec. Doesn't it start with the
oh
cutscene of
the
the
birth.
father giving birth?
The yeah, you're right. You're
Father
right.
giving birth.
So yeah,
The
close enough. I know
father
what you mean.
watching the birth being
Yeah,
given.
yeah.
Yes, that.
You're bored. You got the, which is actually an interesting transition because of what we'll see later. But yeah, yeah. You're born, and your mother, it's implied, does not survive,
Mm.
and uh, you're kind of journeying around the world with your father, and you're kind of aimless at first. Like that's the interesting thing about this game is that it doesn't really kick off with like a you got to save the world, like something bad's happening, you got to do this or that. It's just kind of like we were talking about anime a little bit ago. It's almost like a slice of life story at the beginning.
Mm. Yeah.
It's like I'm just gonna follow my dad around.
Dude, this game has cool dad syndrome. Cooler than Tornico. I mean, I like Tornico, but Pancras gets fucking dad of the century. Coolest dads in gaming. Pancras is at my. Am I saying that right? Pancras?
Your guess is good. That's what I would call him. Pancras.
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 Panko, breadcrumbs. Pancras. I don't know. I like this guy though. So in the beginning, like when you are the kid, he's pretty much doing his own thing, and you have to go talk to everybody in Wheelbrook. Is the name of the town?
Yeah.
And in order to progress the story, and he's like, "Oh, don't bother me. Just go hang out, talk to people." You meet Sancho. Sancho's he's kind of like right hand man.
Yeah.
Kind of stands by him, and you don't get to start journeying and like see what's going on. But I think he's been called by the kingdom, whatever the Coburg.
Mm-hmm.
Coburg has recruited Pancras. And he's kind of a man of mystery, but he's really cool, kind of funny, like upbeat kind of dad figure. Couldn't be mad at you for the world.
Yeah.
Right? You because like I think at one point like you escape town and he's like, "What are you doing? Get back here! You need a sword. Don't worry. Come on, we're gonna try this again." And then you pretty much like follow him, and he is OP as hell. He's stronger than my character ever was in the whole game.
You think so?
The beginning of the game.
I don't think he was he.
At 400 HP, he would swing his sword. He would cast heal after every single battle. It was OP. We talk a little bit more about his strength as we get into some of the further chapters. But you do follow him. Yeah, go ahead.
Before we tear too far into the story, let's just talk about the Zenithia trilogy and how they all kind of combine. Because we talked about 4, last time, and while the ties between 1 through 3 were evident, especially once you beat 3. 4, 5, and 6 aren't really as connected, but they do
I just don't think they're as explicit early on.
I don't really think they're really connected in any major way. Do you think they are?
Do.
Can you explain that? Because I know they share the Zenithian castle, and that's kind of their big signature. But aside from that, I mean, how do you piece these all together?
You remember in Dragon Quest IV, the theme was like the Dark Overlord, like Sorrow, the Manslayer, and then like also a Stark, and some of these other guys were hunting children because one of them was prophesied to take down the Underworld King.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the first places you go to is actually it's like this haunted ghost castle.
Yeah.
Go there with
Bianca.
And when you talk to the ghosts, they're like, we've been cursed dance and until this monster that has been patrolling this territory leaves, and it was because like we refused to give up the children or something. I'm butchering it a little bit, but in that first area, that's where they made the ties explicit. It's the last remaining vestige, in a sense, aside from the Zenithian castle, of Dragon Quest IV.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is some continuation of the impact of what happens in the previous game. It becomes a bit more subtle and subdued because you don't see it in like the overworld terrain as much. I guess it's just presumed that this is centuries later and time changes, and the castle is like underwater at one point. So I guess lands have formed differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like even that idea of prophecies and the return of the legendary hero. Those ties are made as well. It's not like the most connected, but I I disagree with the notion that there isn't connection.
Yeah, it's just that I worry when we talk about that, because then people will there's people that obsess about playing everything in order,
Hmm?
and they'll be like, do I like I can't play 5, you know, the worst ones will say I can't play 5 without playing 1, which is like, don't, no, that's not at all. But I get worried when we say like there's a huge connection, because then you're like, well, then I have to play 4 first. And I don't think it's that close that you
No,
have to
it's
do
not.
that.
It's not substantive enough that you have to play 4 before playing 5. I think you can very much appreciate 5 on its own merits.
Mhm.
But I think that the impact of 5 will be magnified if you played 4 and you're attentive to those kind of details. I don't think it's entirely noticeable, but if you're kind of a super fan
Mhm.
or like really into Dragon Quest games, then I would recommend playing 4 before 5 to appreciate those subtleties.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of cool nods. I mean, there's even some items that carried over from. Well, there's a lot of items, but story items that carry over from 4, which is really cool to see.
Mhm.
And I like that they share. I guess, yeah, really they do, like a shared universe of lore that they can kind of pull from and manipulate. And I like that, and especially the Zenithian castle was fun, since when I played it years ago, I played 4 and then later played 5, and I would never piece together the castle thing. But since we've like just doing them bam bam in a row, the castle's the exact same. Like it's literally the same design and everything, and the hole in the clouds from 4
Yeah.
is there still. So it's,
And
yeah,
that hole is the reason the thing is underwater.
yeah. It's so interesting. So there's this fun like connections to it, which makes it fun. But if you're worried about playing this before, like I want to play 5, but I feel like I have to play 4 first. That's not the case. I think you're fine just playing the one. If you want to play
Should play
5 first,
4.
you should
Because
play.
4 is a good game.
Yeah, yeah. You should just play it.
But
But
yeah. No, I mean if you're looking to do one and done, do Dragon Quest 5.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fine. But if you really want to understand the series, if you see the thing is like if you love the series and give it the time of day and try and do it properly. You don't have to go 1 through 5, but I mean do 4 or 5. 4 was technically in a sense my first Dragon Quest game. First mainline one I finished. It wasn't 1, it wasn't 3. Certainly wasn't 2, but
4 is mine too.
so I went 4 then 5. And I didn't even finish 5 at the time, but I did appreciate it. So, but I don't think I appreciate it any less because I did or didn't play 4.
And then we have family history tragedy. Did we already cover that with the?
Okay, so I mean, you mentioned it briefly, like the implication that the mother has passed away. I thought she was kidnapped by
She
monsters in the
was.
beginning.
Yeah.
Then, so you're kind of just alone.
But it's implied to you that she's dead.
Yeah.
But then, obviously, we'll talk about it later, but she's not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then this cycle repeats throughout the story. So, like you said, we will get to it in a bit.
Okay, you ready to talk about some of these characters?
Let's do it.
All right. The main characters you start out talking to as a kid are Pankraz, your dad. That's our best guess on how to pronounce that. Correct us in the comments. Be nice. And then Sancho. These are the adults, and then of course you have your friend Bianca and the cat Saber to help you out. These are your first people, like in the first couple towns that you're gonna visit. Just a delightful cast. Bianca, I loved playing with like Bianca because it almost felt like Dragon Quest for babies. Which would be kind of a fun game, like a really toned down. Like they should release that, like on the Switch, it's like a simple version of Dragon Quest to kind of get the kids into it.
Didn't you say that's builders though? But that's a separate combo, so let's not go down
Yeah.
the road.
But yeah, I love these characters, and Saber is really adorable. Just like a
He's like a
fun-
little cub. He's like a
Yeah,
baby tiger in the beginning.
yeah, a really really fun mini adventure. With them traveling to the, like you said, that haunted house, old style castle. Like a lot of humor, a lot of stuff. I just like these characters a lot. And yeah, you're right, Pankraz. You're just like, man, I wish I could get to that guy's level.
Basically, he is so like he will not lose when you're on the battlefield with him. In fact, he'll auto direct. So he said Dragon Quest for Babies. He pretty much does all like the kind of random encounters and direction to the town. Sometimes that's annoying in Dragon Quest games, finding where you're supposed to go. He actually finds it for you early on, and then he releases you into the night. Although technically he catches a cold, so you're supposed to sneak out at night with Bianca. But the
Mhm.
reason that you go to this haunted castle is because you like that these kids are bullying this cub and this tiger, and Bianca's like, stop that, what are you doing, we're not going to let him do that. And so they're like, fine, we'll give you the cub, but you have to go to the haunted castle and defeat the whatever, the ghosts in the night that's like tormenting the village. And you come back, you're like, there, showed you. And you get Saber, and you can go off on your way. But I just love like the nods, the humor. Like Pancras decides to stay one more day before fulfilling his regal duties because he has a cold.
Yeah, yeah, they just gotta keeping you around just so you can finish your quest.
So you stay at the inn, and then because if you have to heal up after like leveling up, like to take down the ghost guy at the haunted house and like getting the right equipment and stuff, and like he's still got a cold, so he still can't go. So,
That's
pretty adorable.
This game's first chapter is genius. It's like it's like a microcosm of Dragon Quest. Uh that sets up like what you could argue is the real game as soon as the Act 2 starts. But it is so entertaining just to try to grind your way up so you can get through that castle. That's half of the fun for me for starting up Dragon Quest 5 is just like how are we going to get through this? But of course I picked the damn boomerang, which takes
Mhm.
forever to get, but it's worth it.
Oh,
Cool
it's so
beast.
good. Yeah, it attacks every enemy on screen.
Yeah. I think we should call an audible and move the marriage thing and just go by order of acts. Are you cool with that?
Works for me.
Okay. The next character you're going to meet that's important is Harry. When you travel to Coburg, uh, he is your abusive friend that basically makes you a slave. He thinks it's funny. Um,
Mean that in multiple ways.
yeah, yeah. A lot of really smart setting up for the future in this game. It really like understands narrative well and guides the plot in a really interesting way. But yeah, he's a brat that you're kind of forced to play with, and he he's just very funny,
Gosh,
snotty.
this is the beginning of tragedy, though, right? Harry has a brother. I can't remember the guy's name.
Wilbur,
Yeah, probably.
something like that.
And Harry's next in line to be the king, and the other kid's like, I don't want to be it anyway. But everybody hates Harry. He's such a spoiled prick, And you go in there, he's like, you want to take care of me. This is real life Terry to me. It's like
Yeah,
imagine as
this
Harry.
is Terry.
Yeah, will do all my biddings. You will take me out of this castle at once. And uh, the mother, who we find out is the one that secretly connives to get him kidnapped, so that the other son can succeed to the throne.
Right.
But it happens on your watch. You have to report back to Poundcross, to your father. Tell him. He's like, what? Absolutely not. I was supposed to watch him. I must go find him at once. He storms out of the castle. He chases after the kidnappers, after Harry. And, you watch your father go, and you have no choice but to follow him.
Which, yeah, leads to our big first tragedy, which I didn't expect that when I played this game. Because especially like other Dragon Quests, I'm not going to say that they're always happy, because they're not, but they usually don't have like main characters or what's been you've been taught as main characters die. It's usually those characters are usually pretty consistent, and then but Pankraz, you find him, you do all the steps, and then you get introduced to our villain, and he kills him.
It's
That's
one of the saddest moments in gaming.
You think so?
He is the perfect, most lovable, amazing model, archetypal father figure in the video game. From the start, and he's very kind of burlesque, manly, etc.
Mhm.
And by this point, you go chasing after Harry. You partner with your father, and you go through. He's like, all right, I guess you got to come, and we got to do this together. Find Harry, take him out of the cell after this long period of grinding through this cave to the east of Coburg. And at one point on the escape, Pankraz has to stay back and fight. Harry try and make it out together. He's like, run for it, guys. And so you and Harry come across your first two main villains. It's Lodja and somebody else. It's like this elephant guy with two shields.
It's like the two. I always call him Bebop and Rocksteady from Teenage
Oh, I
Mutant
got
Ninja
it wrong,
Turtles.
by the way. He's the horse. Is a horse and the elephant guy with two shields. It's not Lodja.
Well, yeah, but Lodge is there. But yeah. I always call him like from Ninja Turtles because they're just like two big animal monster dudes.
You lose. You're gonna lose this fight. You can't win. It's just not possible at this stage in the game. And your father comes to the rescue, kicks their asses, wipes the damn floor with them. And you watch it happen. Like, you actually watch this battle happen real time. Like, this is the equivalent of a cutscene, but with gameplay in like that kind of genius way that we were talking. That's like not anime. It's like very much part of the in game.
Mhm.
Then Lodge just shows up, holds you, but with a knife to your throat. Haha, I got you now, Pankraz. What are you gonna do? You want to beat us? And do you want to save Harry at the expense of your son? Will you be okay with this? You have to sit there and watch as he gives up, takes blows the entire fight.
Yeah.
Watch every single hit until he collapses. And then you and Harry are escorted to an island into slavery, into Act 2.
Yeah. Boom. Spoilers, by the way. I don't know.
I mean, by this point, you're here. You've played this game.
You fucked up. That's on you. Anyway, yeah, that's the craziest transition. I mean, no other game even really does big time skips. It's super rare that a game will even do that, and this game does it twice.
Does the game even make you watch another party member do the fight?
Well, didn't this all kind of happen in Dragon Quest 3? But they did this way better in Dragon Quest 5.
Oh my! They perfected it here. It was a joke in 3. This is what he was striving for in my eyes. Hori.
Yeah.
Incredible. It's incredibly powerful. And then Harry, right? Into Act 2. Harry, you learn, is just incredibly remorseful about this whole thing. He is a complete character shift. He's suppressed. He's no longer this kind of, power hungry, angry kid. He's just like, I've been thinking about it all these years, and I'm just so sorry I can never repay you. Or whatever your main character's name is.
Well, and like talking about what you were talking about earlier is he realizes like what being a slave really is. And when he would take that to, being a leader later. But it's really clever writing and really an interesting way to transition into being an adult is they're wiser. I mean, your main character maybe not so much. He seems obviously he's a silent protagonist, so he's whatever. But you can see it in Harry, like you said. It's just like a complete shift in perspective.
Main character, I have more to say on him, but it kind of transgresses the narrative a little bit. Mm-hmm. We could save it.
Now we're in the second act. We're teens. I mean, we don't have to go beat by beat, especially now in the teen one. It's a lot longer.
Sure.
This and then the father, the meat of the game. But as a teen, I like too that as a teen you start being able to progress through the world a lot easier. Like as a kid, you're kind of stuck to the really two continents, but barely. Like because you get the little bridge to the one to Coburg, but you're not really even in control of that. It's like based on what your dad wants to do. Then as a teen now, as soon as you escape from the prison, which is awesome, you meet a couple new characters, including Maria, and you really start your journey, and you're able to travel the world, including places you've already been, and then new places, and the world just really opens up to you, which is also like a parallel, to life. As you get older, you get a car, you can drive further, you can get your own personal freedom. It really matches like it really is almost like a statement about life, which is not something you expect out of a Dragon Quest video game, especially in 1992.
The only difference here is that it does parallel life, but with the extremity that you're emerging from slavery.
Yeah.
And you are coming out of like you actually start in humble beginnings, as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're kind of just a wanderer. You get that with the kind of main character's garb. There's like kind of robe and like headscarf thing. But, like you have nothing when you leave. When you escape the prison in a barrel through the sewer pipes,
Yeah.
and even that was miraculous in and of itself, because the way that you do that is because Harry stood up for Maria, and her brother was an employee who was also indentured to the demons, monsters, at this prison. So he sacrifices his own life, which you find later in a skeleton in the same place,
Yeah.
just so that you could escape. So it is a statement in a sense that like you can overcome obstacles. It's not going to be a small feat. You're really going to have to work.
Yeah. It's cool too to see like what the 10-year gap has done. It's about 10 years. I don't know the exact time, but about 10-year gap. What it's done to the world. You can see, Wheelbrook is like it's trashed by now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's trashed. It's got poison spots on it. She always means it's just been like rooted and everything. Um Coburg has changed. It's now ruled by the queen and well, the boy Wilbur, but also the queen. And there's a weird story with her. She's actually been kidnapped. And there's a lot of weird stuff there, but it's fun to go visit the old places and see how things have changed and see how you can help fix it and get better. And our friend, well, like that's a little bit later, but yeah, there's a lot of cool places to travel, and then some new places. Even a place where they're doing research on spells and they figure out how to do Zoom. They never. I don't know.
Bloomingdale.
Zoomingdale. Yeah, I don't know if they've ever like explained that concept in any game besides this one. It's just
Yeah.
like Zoom now. Congratulations.
Take it.
Yeah. There's a really cool story when you meet up with Saber again. Is he's like a monster in a cave, and when they find out you're friends with him, they hate you now, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. But eventually you get to what is often considered the most famous part of this game, and what everybody asks when you talk about this game, which I think is kind of a disservice, but it is. I guess at the time it was new, and it led to some things I really hate about RPGs. But um, you know, they were having fun with it. Is you get to pick a wife through a series of events. They're fine in and of itself, but the main thing is you get to pick. In the original, you get to pick between Bianca or Nira. Bianca, of course, was your childhood friend. You did that castle thing with, and then Nira was as a girl that has a rich father, and she's generally a well received character. Like she's not mean or anything. She's very kind. And in the DS remake, you get to also potentially marry his other daughter, who is a monster. Her name is Deborah. Yuji Horii said they designed it specifically because you would never want to pick her. He
Oh,
misjudged.
she's funny in her own right.
He misjudged the
I
audience.
watched Brian, I think, Deborah, and just looked at the banter that she was saying, with party chat.
Yeah. She just demeans
That's
you.
miserable.
We did a Reddit poll here. We asked, make sure you check us out on Reddit, RPG Archive. Find us, join. We're doing polls on the games we play. And here we asked Dragon Quest V, who did you marry? I guess I'm part of the problem. And our choices are Bianca, Deborah, or Nira. Number 1 with 27 votes was Bianca. And then number 2 with 15 votes was Nira. And 3 was Deborah with 13 votes. Actually, Deborah and Nira are very close. Some of the comments. Let me zoom in here. Dragons for Laifu says, first playthrough Bianca, literally every other playthrough since Nira. I started one playthrough where I married Deborah, so I had a playthrough with all the waifus, and in the end I deleted it because I couldn't enjoy a playthrough with any other wife that wasn't Nira. Guy Beard Main said, only playthrough I finished was one where I married Deborah because she's rad as fuck. She's a strong, independent woman who don't need a man, but is willing to let one go on her adventure anyway.
Let's go.
Milky Katya said, the first time I played through, I was annoyed that I had to choose a wife. I was maybe 13, so I chose the one that would annoy me the least. I can't handle Bianca and her talk about the ghost tower, so I chose Nira, but Nira is absolutely my first love. Each time I replay this game, I always choose her. I have very strong emotions for a video game character, and I'm okay with it because in my mind, we went through so much together. I absolutely love Nira. Oh.
Sweet.
Very kind. But Bianca is our number 1, and I understand that. The first time I played it, I picked Bianca because of what we went through. It seemed criminal that you wouldn't pick her. Like, why?
Right. I did the same thing. That also Dragons for Life guy, I think he was the first one, said he picked Bianca first and then picked Nira subsequently. Maybe I was wrong. But
yeah, right, exactly.
And I read this somewhere else. It's almost like the game pushes you. Pick Bianca.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to pick Nira. Like it is wrong, like you said. Is you have such a already founded connection with her. Versus Nira is like you encounter her once as a child. Like they come through the town. It's I forget the name of the town. It's an insignificant town, but by the haunted house. Her father, and then she's like, okay, maybe I'll remember you one day or something. Mm-hmm. My counterpoint to that, though, is that just because you've been through something with somebody, or fate would have that you should marry, whoever, doesn't mean you have to. I think with Bianca, it's just because you've been through something doesn't necessarily create attraction.
Well,
I think Nira is kind of more of like a pinnacle, staple, archetypal female aesthetic beauty, I guess. And she's a nice person you find on the journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Bianca, I mean, added to the fact that you went through what you did with Bianca, they also try to guilt you into it because she has her mom died, or something about her mom died, or somebody, I think it was her mom, and she's like every day she's at the gravestone, just like commemorating her, and her dad is like, oh, someone needs to take her. She's really lonely these days, and she needs help. Which was like I was not gonna pick her on this playthrough, and I was like, I know I'm not going to. And then having this like, okay, yeah, that sucks. I'm gonna pick the blue-haired girl.
Yeah, me too. I picked her.
I was gonna pick Deborah, but I decided to go with a monster instead of because I was gonna pick her because she's more of a fighter. But I decided to just pick a monster and said, screw it, I'll just pick Nira. But
she gets a sick item too. It's called Diamond to Kill It. It allows her to pick up or attack twice.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that item was because I had it, and it sells for like 150,000 gold coins or 15,000. I don't know if I'm getting my math right, but looked sick when I read about it online.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe one day I'll do another playthrough and do that. But um, so like little things that are different is it'll change the color of your kid's hair. So Bianca has blonde hair, so your kids will be blonde. Nira is blue hair, so the hair will be blue. Deborah, I didn't play with Deborah, but I'm assuming hair will be brown, black, whatever that is. Um, and then Deborah is more of a physical attacker, though she has spells. Um, Bianca, I believe, is more damage, but has some healing. And Nira is more of a healer. They're, every guide I read, they're like, don't even bother using them anyway. But I think
Oh,
I
no,
might.
she was great, dude. Nira, she was using Frizzle in the end game, and it was doing like 200 damage.
That's pretty damn good.
She was underpowered too because you get the wife back after the kids. The kids had leveled up so much by the time I got to her.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
that.
I'm curious
Yeah.
if you pick Deborah. I didn't pick her because I didn't want my playthrough to be insufferable. I'm curious what her reactions are. Times like where she gets kidnapped or where you rescue her. Is she like, about damn time, you loser? You know, like
Yeah.
I do want to see what she says.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to see that. That's one of my complaints, and we'll probably talk about more with the monster taming. But
Mm.
I have some qualms with the people that talk about this game.
Yeah, no, I do think it's unfair to characterize Dragon Quest V primarily on the choice of a waifu. I think there's so much more to the game than that, and it's just a fun little tidbit. I don't think it needs to be that much given attention to, but I don't mind. I don't mind that that's a question that comes up. Oh, so what wife did you pick? You know, because it actually kind of lends some, I don't know, authenticity to the game or some credibility. It almost kind of boosts the Dragon Quest name brand in a sense. Like maybe it helps appeal to more people. So if that's the end result is that more people will play Dragon Quest V out of it, I don't mind.
I Yeah, I'm cool with that. I don't like the waifu thing with like anime stuff, um, because that got roped into 8 and 11. Is there like because like 8 you with the remake you could change who your wife is at the end,
Oh, okay.
and they're like who'd you marry at the end? It's like this
Yeah.
this
Can
is
I
not
ask you this? Would
important.
you prefer that there was a preset wife path that you automatically married Bianca?
I think they could have made it an interesting. I mean, I think the story they want you to follow is the Bianca one, and I would be fine if it was set up that you just married Bianca. I I would have no issue with that. I think it's actually the best story is that you marry Bianca, and then because it's just the most romantic. I don't know the way that all the events are played out and stuff. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't really make any sense to marry anybody else. Like Nira there's somebody that likes her a lot that's in a competition to get her, and you're like, okay, I'll join this. I have no connection to Nira at all. I'm just using her so I can get progress my story. It's like I'll just go with Bianca and you can have her, and that's like the most heroic thing you could do is have a trophy and give it up for somebody else. So
Mhm.
everything points to me that Bianca is the right answer, and you should just play that. But I guess some people like choice, so there you go.
It's hard to counterpoint it, you know, because like I mean, I think that like a kid who tries to be your suitor then just goes and finds somebody else anyway. You pick her.
Hmm.
If you go to the church like later, he's there with somebody else. So I mean, you could be saving her from a potentially, troubled relationship. That's
Yeah.
not fully explored. So like I get it. But my thing is like I did like Thera a lot. I felt like more of a protector,
Hmm.
I because Bianca's very much fine on her own. She's tomboy-esque, you know. Although like I guess her character art maybe wouldn't suggest that as much on the DS version. Or typical kind of Dragon Ball artwork, I guess. Um there's something about Nera that I felt was right. So it was weird to me. I'm not surprised by the poll results. I'm happy that Nera and even Deborah got as many picks as they did. Um, shows that people are not as like single-minded to it as needed. But Bianca's definitely like a fan favorite. A lot of people pick her. Like it is, I think it's normal to pick her, especially the first time you play.
Yeah.
If you were playing this the first time, you don't pick her. I don't want to say like what's wrong with you, because I mean there's nothing wrong. It's a video game, but you made the wrong choice.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, as an adult, for as a teen, from then on, you you take up your throne as the king of Gotha. Which to get there, you have to go through one hell of a dungeon. Did you have trouble with that dungeon?
Oh, what was it? There was like a couple like stairs to drop down and stuff. No, I mean I was kind of used to it, like the Pokemon style exploration by that point. So
Whew, I got my ass handed to me in that dungeon. That
was it? Do you remember?
I think it was the canna box or the mimics that kept
Hmm?
screwing me up. There was a lot of mimics in there, and for whatever they just kept casting like Zwack.
Fuck yeah, such a pain in the ass.
Come on.
But I love that they give you mini medals.
Yeah,
That's new.
yeah, and you know you realize that eventually you realize that she is pregnant, which means that you got to work pretty quickly here.
Yeah, she falls sick like like as you're like coming across the bridge to Gotha. Like you can actually see down in the kingdom, and then she falls, and like you take her, and um, they take care of her, they nurture her, and then like bring her down to the kingdom or something.
Mm-hmm.
Later. Um, moment.
And then as poetry happens, you have another scene where a baby's born, except this time it's yours.
Hmm?
And it's pretty genius how it's done. It's done in almost the exact same way, and in similar fashion, your wife is abducted,
Hmm.
which will lead us to the third act. But yeah, like she gets abducted, and eventually you do your dungeon to find her. You get up there, you scale it, and you get what I think is super interesting. You get turned into stone, both of you, and then auctioned off, which is it's like it's weird because the music playing during all that is so somber. It's like somber Dragon Quest music that they have. They have like one track for somberness, and they use it for that. Like the it's like this quiet thing, but it's actually kind of funny. Like you being in an auction and people just bidding on you, then you just getting carted away to an island.
Oh my god, dude. That scene. I cried twice during this game the first time I played it. This
Mm.
time it wasn't as emotional because I already knew what to expect. But you know, just everything that you just worked for,
Yep.
oof, gone. You know, it's and you've literally come out of slavery, having watched your father murdered, and now becoming the king of the kingdom that your father was once the king of, that you like nobody knew he was the king of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
And you've come to this place and they celebrate, and you take the throne, and you have the kids, and the boy and the girl. Then everybody falls asleep drunk, like there's no music, it's dead silence, and you wake up in the middle of the night, he's gone. By the way, I don't know if that's a Chrono Trigger thing. Do you remember like when everyone got drunk at like the dinosaur area?
I don't think there was no music. Maybe there was at when he woke up. I don't remember.
Oh, I don't know, Chrono Trigger, whatever, like it's the tangent. But anyways, you just the process of even getting to like the other side of the island, like you have to find like the chancellor's like Talaria.
Mm-hmm.
The throwback there.
Yeah.
Quest 4. Pointed that one out for Ragnar. Um then like I think that dungeon area was pretty tricky too. Um you get to the top and you fight one of the monsters that had attacked your father.
Mm-hmm.
You take him down and he's like, "No, this can't be it. You must be the legendary hero. I will not let you uh, um away with this." And so he calls on Lodja to come back. Instead of getting retribution on him, he does more damage to your family. He just continues the cycle of tragedy. Wife was not only stolen from you before your eyes, but now you're separated once again. And while that's happening, watch the island, the story of Georgie Porgy unfold. Now, throughout most of the game, I say most of the characters can only sympathize with you. They don't know your struggles. The only ones I'd say maybe do are like Harry, Bianca. Um, but otherwise, if you just talk to villagers and you like go back to Willbrook and you say like, oh, he's like, the legendary Pancras once lived here. His son used to be here. Wait, what? That's you? No way, that can't be right. It's like a tragic moment, like he sees you, but he
Mhm.
only has pity on you. This is the first time that I think like a normal ass character actually empathize with your struggles. His father has his child abducted from him because he's wealthy. The guy who auctioned on you. You watch as Georgie Porgy grows up from being a baby after you've been bought at an auction. It's not even like a typical thing, right? Like you might like think like, oh, stereotypical like auction somebody bought me is like some like person with no character or class or just like they're evil or awful. No, this is actually just like a rich guy from a rich family with a rich wife, and his son is stolen from him, by monsters because a kid is prophesied to take down the king of the underworld. And it's just in that moment you see that this conflict is not relegated solely to you. It's this monster thing and these kids being abducted is affecting everybody, and eventually your own kids come to save you. And like the fact you have to sit there and watch this for like 5 minutes as
Mhm.
that somber music unfolds, it's just like you can't even do anything. You are literally a statue. It doesn't matter what you press, what you do, you can't skip this. You have to watch this. The actual graphics on this DS cut screen, like cutscenes, they like change with the seasons. You can see the colors of the leaves change, so you really do get the sense of time passing by.
It's one of the more interesting things in any Dragon Quest game is just being frozen in time like that. Well, not frozen in time, but frozen like that, and just watching these events unfold before you. And it's another reason that could you imagine? I know in the PS1 era forward it would probably be like confusing why you didn't do this. But this should have been like a cutscene. Like they would have turned this into like a big thing, a cinematic where your character's like old or stuck and then things are going on around him and they have all these cuts and all these things. But I think it really makes it better that it's not a cutscene. That it's almost like a gameplay element, even though you're more just skipping through dialogue. But it's played out like in real time, so you can't move. And it's an early example of translating what should be a real feeling into gameplay. Of just like inability to change your situation, inability to help. And they somehow made that work. Whereas, yeah, I think a lot of games would just have turned that into a cutscene. And just like 10 years later, I can't move. It's like
Yeah.
I it's geniusly done here. It's geniusly done. So amazing.
I think between watching your father suffer the blows that he could have retaliated against, and like making those actual in-game scenes as opposed to like animated cutscenes, it really is a lot more felt. And
Mhm.
I think that a lot of the rest of the game struggles to actually live up to these two moments,
Yeah.
um, which is a shame because I think like those two moments are just like so profound and so just everything that Hori was talking about when he said, he wanted a game that people could relate to. If there's one thing people can relate to, it's pain,
Hmm.
suffering, because everyone goes through it. I
Yeah.
think this game does it geniusly. These are some moments where that happens.
Absolutely. And it's a pleasure to find your kids again. Well, to see them grow up and they're all what I don't remember their exact age, probably 10 or whatever, but they're young kids. But
Supposedly, you're 30 by the time that they find you. Would be because you've been frozen in time, but
mhm. So you get to meet your kids and you get to go on an adventure with your children, which it turns out your boy kid, is the actual hero the whole time that you've been searching for.
How ironic.
It's
How ironic.
It's pretty amazing.
It's every Dragon Quest or RPG up to this point, it's like you're the hero. This is like the stereotype. That's the trope. Well, they actually turned it on its head. No, your son's the hero. You can play with him, but he's the only one that can wield the Zenithian sword. You never can throughout the entire game.
Yeah, and you go through the rest of the game with them, and you tackle that big statue you were building as a teen. You find it. And, there's lots of stuff you can do. I love that you can like. There's so many different ways to get around now, including the castle itself. This is
Oh,
freaking
so
cool.
good.
Yeah, there's a lot of memorable stuff in the latter part. But what always struck me was that it really embraced the ability now to do whatever you want. Whereas as a kid, you had almost no mobility, and then as an adult, you can literally go anywhere and fly wherever you want. Um,
And you can talk to your kids about everything. I
mhm.
love the party talk. I always ask, like, gee, did mom grow up here? What was that like? But this is what your hometown looked like. Oh, very interesting. And just seeing like their curiosity and their inquisitiveness is really awesome.
Yeah. There's tons to do, but a lot of the third chapter is based on your mom, just kind of realizing she's still alive and then trying to find her. And yeah, it turns out she's a big magical angel, basically. And you know, from then on, it's just Dragon Quest. Just gotta go to the final boss.
Basically.
But
Yeah.
really good stuff. Um, do you have anything more? Well, do you want to talk about the end or any spots in this third chapter you want to highlight?
Dr. Agon in the Minecraft, or not the Minecraft, the
The mine
minecarts.
carts. Oh god, yeah.
I love that. That's incredible.
Dr.
See,
Agon. We don't have any Dr. Agons on our records.
you're talking about we never had one here in the castle.
Genius.
It's like I've been riding around in circles in this minecart for 20 years. Nobody saved me.
That's
It's
it's
a
so
little
funny.
loopy.
Even in like the darkest moments of the series, they're always willing to tell jokes. They just that's such a Dragon Quest trope, but it's funny.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean the final boss is what it is. I didn't
Oh,
think it was that hard,
yeah, me
but
neither.
also I was massively over leveled for it. So because I spent so much time trying to get some characters, which we'll talk about in a second. But by the time I beat him, I was level 40, and
Same. I was like 38 or something.
I just steamrolled him.
I was disappointed because, like, I stopped playing this on my first playthrough, probably like just before Bjorn. I think I got a little lost, and so when you put down an RPG for a while, it's like you intimidated about picking it back up. Like you forget a lot of stuff. I forget what happened in the story. I just forgot like what to do or how to work some things. So I put it down for like 5 years. And when we did this archive, this is the first time I've cleared the game, and I picked Nera as a different wife or whatever. I was just disappointed that like very few things were like of narrative significance from this point forward. In fact, Lodja should have been the primary villain this entire game. I had no feelings about Nimzo.
Nimzo.
He's not present. Then at the end, he's like suddenly like an almighty demonic figure, and he's not even that hard. Like he has two phases, okay, and I think it's cool that he can actually summon monsters in the first phase. That threw me for a loop. The first time I fought him, but the second phase wasn't bad at all. He just felt like a fire-breathing dragon guy.
Yeah.
Like you're playing in my game, and y'all are pawns in it, and it doesn't matter what you do if you think you can beat me because I control everything. And then like after you beat him, they do the whole like tour the world thing, which I like it in other Dragon Quest because it's like it's very limited. It's like you just walk back to your kingdom and you could talk to some people and that's it. But they actually force you to go to a bunch of places and ride the Zenithian dragon like all over the place and like autopilot. I just thought it was dragged out and I didn't care talk at like all of these different places.
Mhm.
I just wanted to like earn my credits. Found the end of Dragon Quest IV more emotional for some reason.
Yeah, I was immediately reminded because I remember 6 did that too. Where it just takes you around. It's like I don't really care. Like just give me a good ending. You don't have to give me this. This is overkill. Like you that should be I think Earthbound did that where it didn't force you to, but you could walk around and everybody had something to say to you. Maybe they should have just put that in like a section of the game where you could be like, okay, I beat it. Can I walk around now and just talk to people? And that would be cool.
Or you could even get on the dragon and you can go to whatever place you want.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So it is. They want to end it in a crazy way, so that's what they do. Doesn't do much for me, but
Mm.
all right. Let's talk about one of the biggest things about this game that isn't marriage. It's the other thing people usually talk about when it comes to Dragon Quest V, and that's monster taming. This is going to be a beast of a segment, but we'll try to tackle it as best we can.
Sure.
So, Dragon Quest V is the first game in the series where I guess 4 is because you got a slime partner for a little bit, but Dragon Quest V is really the first game where you're able to tame monsters and level them up as party members for the entirety of the game, as soon as you can, as soon as it allows you to. You could take these characters and actually beat the game with the monsters instead of putting other characters in your party. So that's pretty gnarly. Some people even almost exclusively use monsters instead of characters from your family. And that was one of the things I had an issue with Reddit on, or just not Reddit, but just people that play this game in general. A lot of people will recommend using monsters as opposed to using your teammates, like your human teammates, like your family and stuff. I think the monsters work only if you're willing to grind for a long time and really level them up. Because if you don't, your party, your general like family is actually pretty good.
Yeah. I beat the end game with only the human party. I didn't need monsters, but I did need them actually throughout the playthrough. Not for the end game. Throughout the playthrough, they saved my skin a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah, they
The
have
other
their
thing too is like, people can recommend you get certain monsters, but a lot of it's just take what you can get
Mhm.
as you're going through the game. The systems for like catching, aiming monsters, it's not throw a Pokeball and catch it. It's like they'll offer their services to you based on like how many times you encounter them, which we can go into the nitty gritty of, but it's not as formulaic and predictable. So, quite frankly, if a monster throws itself up to you early game, you should be grateful because at some points you just need the monsters to continue going through the game. Once you get towards the end game, that's when you can start to, if you want, go into actually farming for monsters, so to speak.
All right, let's tackle it. What is monster taming? It's
You talked about it.
yeah, we good. So we talk about how you do it, and we're playing the DS version slash the Android version, but you can recruit up to 80 monsters. There's 40 in the Famicom.
Oh wait, so let me clarify that. You can have 80 monsters in your party, but there are 71 recruitable ones in the PS2 and DS.
Gotcha.
So for the Famicom, the original one, due to hardware limitations, there was only 40 available monsters.
Gotcha. So we'll get into some of the interesting facts. Each monster has a total of, I think, 4 names that they can be named, which are all, it's 3 or 4. I think it's 4, but they're like puns. So it's always fun to get a new character and see what kind of puns they'll change his name to.
What did you have?
I don't remember their names, but I had the only one I used at the end was a golem.
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember what his name was, but I don't remember.
I don't remember my golem, but I remember Mickey Owl, like a misspelling of Michael for a heel slime. I
I
remember
had him, yeah.
Ward the warthog. Then
Yep. Maybe the first name is always the same because I had him too.
I had Gumdrops, which was a bag of goodies. He's a beast. I could never control him, which we'll talk about in a sec. But he was incredible. And those are the primary ones I remember. I didn't use too many other ones. I did use the golem, but sadly I don't know his name either.
Well, you couldn't control him because The requirement is they have to have a wisdom of 20 or higher. Otherwise, they'll do whatever they want. And
Uncontrollable.
which is actually a thing in Pokemon as well, which is kind of funny. It's about like how many badges you have. But yeah, and this one, it's their wisdom had to be 20, which was really annoying at the beginning of the game because nothing had that. But then most things later had a wisdom of 20 by the time, like in the late game. But
Gumdrops, though, which was my most powerful monster, tapped out levels at level 7 and had a wisdom of 5.
oh,
So I tried using a wisdom seed and it got to 10. And he listened to me a little bit more if I picked commands, but still annoying. None of the other monsters I had level caps that I noticed.
yeah, a lot of the other ones have pretty broad level caps. They can be smaller. They can be up to like 80, I think. So, which you would, well, we would never hit. Clearly, online, people are trying to hit that. My God. There's a really, really complicated recruitment probability here.
And this is according to GameFAQs. So like this is their formula for it. And so I don't know like the logistics, like with the accuracy or anything. I think the concept will apply. So we'll go over it, but I wouldn't take it too much to heart or try and like force the odds too much. But yeah, do you want to explain it or do you want me to? I'll do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So in order to calculate recruitment odds, you would use the formula Pn equals 1 minus parentheses 1 minus PR end parentheses to the nth power. So take you back to the high school days. This is PEMDAS. You got to do what's in the parentheses first, but let me go over the values of these. Pn, which is what you're looking for, is the probability that you'll tame the monster. PR is the probability that you would recruit that monster from one battle. So like every monster would have a specific odd that you have to collect it. So say you have a rotten apple. Rotten apple's 1 in 4. So it's actually quite easy to collect versus King Cure Slime, which we'll talk about in another minute, is very low. It's like 1 in 64. Liquid Metal Slime, that would be another one. 1 out of 64. So what you do is you do 1 minus 1 minus 1 over 64, let's say, and then you do that to the number of battles that you fought.
I think
if I can explain this,
yeah, okay,
do it first, and then you could jump in. If you do the bit in the parentheses and you have a very low probability, you're actually your odds are incredibly low because you're subtracting 1 minus what's very close to a value of 1. Then, as you raise it towards the number of valid battles that you fought with that monster, say you fought this thing 500 times, suddenly that number gets smaller and smaller, so your odds actually go up of getting the monster. So that's how people manipulate the system is they continue to have battles with the recruitable monsters to increase their odds that that monster will throw themselves at them and join the party.
I think this equation has a typo in it. I think the second minus is supposed to be a divide. It's supposed to be a fraction.
Because if you do 1 minus, like let's say 1 over 4, right? Just keep it simple. You have 0.75. And then if you've had one battle, one valid battle for n, 0.75 to the first power is still 0.75.
Right.
So if you
the first
1 minus 0.75, you only have a 25% chance
the first
that
minus
the thing
is
will throw
correct.
itself at you.
I was going to say the first minus is correct. The 1 minus is correct. The second one, the one that you have highlighted there, I think that's supposed to be a divide. Because PR is supposed to be the 4, and it'd be 1 divided by 4.
No, it's not divided by 4. It's 1 divided by 1 over 4.
But that over is divided. That's what a fraction is.
1 over 1 divided by 4. I think it works either way. Well, no, it doesn't because 1 over 64. No, 1 over 64 to the nth, then you would have a huge probability. Doesn't make any sense.
No, because 1 minus that.
I know, but if you change the second one to a division sign, suddenly you're subtracting 1 over 64 from 1, your probability would be huge. Math's wrong.
But 1 minus 1 over 64?
Mm-hmm. Then your probability of taming the monster, the
PN,
would be almost 1.
I see it. I see it.
Sorry, I don't want to rub it in your face. I love math.
But that doesn't... Because all right, I'm just gonna assume it's gonna work out. To me, it seems like you could really simplify this with getting rid of some of these ones, but I guess I'll just let it go.
It makes sense. It makes sense when you plug it in. But I don't know. I can't trust the legitimacy of for this kind of thing. I would have to see this from an official strategy guide. Actually, make heads or tails of it.
Yeah. Then we got top. So it's pretty. Basically, there's some monsters that are really hard to catch and some that aren't, and it actually changes based on how many times you've caught them. So if you caught them once before, it's like somewhere around twice as hard to catch them the next time. I'm sure it gets more complicated with this equation. I spent, because of the forums, and that's why I'm so angry at these forums. I spent so long trying to catch a king cure slime that it got me past end game level of experience. It got me to seriously, like, I think my main hero was level 36 when I finally caught him or something. And I read that you could beat this game at like 35 or 33 or something. So I was like, but I'd already beaten it, so I was like, I want to do it or try to beat it the way that they recommended on the forum. And King Cure Slime is pretty much worthless unless you level him up a shit ton. Because the main reason that so it says top 3 monster recruits, and according to the guide, are Slime Knight, Golem, and King Cure Slime. Slime Knight is great up until you're an adult, and then he kind of falls off because he caps out at around level, like he just stops learning new moves and he doesn't know anything great. But he has really strong resistance, so he can survive most boss fights pretty easily. And then he has like the basic cure moves. Golem is great late game as well because he can equip really good items and is just a strong character. And he knows meditation, so he has his own self heal, so he can actually survive the entire boss fight by himself if you level him up a lot. King Cure Slime, the reason they like him is because he has Omni Heal. So you can continuously cast that, and it's a guaranteed like 100% heal for your entire party. The problem with that is it's super mana intensive, and he has a lot of mana, but even that, he can only cast it like 5 or 6 times at normal levels. That's why you have to level him up an absurd amount so that he can have enough mana to make that worthwhile.
Okay.
And it's like with that slot, you can have one of the other characters that just has multi-heal, and you've almost got the same benefit. I mean, it's not as good, but you can get a lot more out of characters. So I disagree with when people recommend stuff on those forums. At least they should make sure to put out that like this was like a super max level build, not like a typical thing you would do to try to beat the game. Because I think you could be just fine using regular cast members, and you'll be fine.
Sure. I mean, I definitely was. I mean, but where do you even get King Cure Slime? Isn't that like in the end game?
No, you can get him in the castle of Zenithia. Like when it's on the normal map, when you're trying to get like when you have to climb the tower to get like some guy has an item. I think it was like a Magna staff or something. When you're climbing that, the very early part of it, you can run into him.
Okay.
Super easy.
I never saw one.
Yeah.
Never seen one.
And they're super hard to get. And I spent unbelievable amounts of time trying to get it. Like literally like a week. Instead of trying to actually play the game, it was just me just, on my phone, just going back and forth trying to get them. It was the worst.
All right, so I know how you feel about King Cure Slime, and I know you like Golem, but what are some of your other top monsters?
I used Ward for a little bit. I didn't love him. He was the poker ogre, whatever that guy is. Early on, I used a Hammerhod or Hammerhood. I don't remember what his name was, but he was freaking awesome. He hit really hard.
The hood on his head, and he's got like the mallet.
Yeah. He was great. I used a not a slime, but like I can't remember. It was so long ago, but there was a hard hitting guy. He was kind of like a gloopy guy, and I was able to equip him with a boomerang. And once you do that, I mean, I had just two people throwing boomerangs. We got through most of the game that way.
Right. Yeah.
Those are my mains. And of course, Slime Knight was great. How about you?
Gollum was great end game. I know you're pushing me to him, but I was team goodie bag. Like this thing was using Kaswish, was dominating. It was insane. He would have Kasap, so he'd take defense off the guys, and he'd have absorb magic, which I really liked because if the enemy cast magic spells on you, you get magic, you get mana back. But he was uncontrollable, so I take him out. I leave Gollum in. Heal Slime was really good. He had multi heal. I really liked multi heal because even if your party members were in the wagon, they would still get healed, even during combat. And then I liked Ward because he had Kazing, so you could revive your party members with full health. And then he also really packed a punch. But I had a dragon, like this kind of like standing dragon with whiskers. It looked like a catfish almost, and it had like fire breath. He was cool. And then I liked my Mana War. I forget what his name was, but it had burning breath, so I could do paralysis. And those heal slimes, they could also equip boomerangs. So very useful. If I could get one though, like that I didn't get on the previous playthrough, probably like a metal slime. Like that would be so cool. But it's just so hard because they run away.
I heard some people on the forums they would be super excited when they got a metal slime. It's obviously incredibly rare, so
Yeah.
it's just not even something you should strive for. But it'd be interesting. I don't know how great it would be as a teammate, but definitely
Right.
like it ain't dying anytime soon. So there's that.
If you're planning on playing with the humans, then I think like things like going for the King Cure Slime are a little bit irrelevant. Excuse me. Because your human party members have a lot of heal spells. Even your main character does. So I don't know.
Yeah, it only works if it's mega late game, like maxed out to, and that is just such a thing. I would never recommend that. It's such a waste of time just to hit this weird obscure roll. I was a little bit irritated by that just because it should be a disclaimer. That's what that's for. So I'm trying to do my best to help you, the player, the listener.
Yeah, I wouldn't go for a full monster playthrough or like even I mean you could, that's fine, but you know, I wouldn't necessarily stress yourself about like getting
Mm-hmm.
best monsters because I think you're in for a world of pain if you try and do that. I would just be grateful with whatever you get and just use them. I think the monster system I like how it spruces it up for every subsequential playthrough. But, I don't think it's necessary
Mm.
to try and exploit it either. That's when it becomes a bit more formulaic, and that's not necessarily what I like RPGs.
Agreed. Let's talk about the legacy. Um,
But
where do you think Dragon Quest falls in terms of like mainstream gaming? Like where do you think it fits into the saga of Dragon Quest? I have a
questions. Which one do you
I have a quote
want me to
here.
answer?
Although critics agree that the game's interface feels archaic and overly simple at times, many cite that the emotional plot more than makes up for the game's flaws. Stated that it is one of the greatest classic RPGs. Do you agree with that?
I agree with parts of it. I agree it's one of the greatest classic RPGs. I agree it has a very emotional plot. I agree that the some of the systems do feel archaic if you look at it that way. If you look at monster taming, it's archaic. But I think there's a beauty in simplicity, which is why I gravitate towards Dragon Quest, and I hesitate to call these things flaws. Even the monster taming system was the first of its kind, and a lot of that was this is a game where story takes precedence over gameplay, and all it needs is a functional gameplay system in the first place, just to get you through and experience and enjoy the story. Once you start getting focused on number crunching and stuff like that, you start to lose the beauty of what this game is even about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the tragic, downfall of your family and humanity amongst the demon overlords. And so I think if you get too caught up in gameplay systems, you lose sight of that. And not everybody has a taste for that. Not everybody has a taste for narrative and gaming. So Dragon Quest V isn't for everybody. It's not a Dragon Quest that I would recommend to everybody who's looking to get into Dragon Quest. But for very particular people who really like storytelling in a game, this is perfect. This is a 10 out of 10. This is all I could ever ask for in a Dragon Quest game. A game that brings me to tears is perfect. there's a reason this game was the one Dragon Quest that had a movie made out of it, which we'll talk about later. But it's
um,
a really just I think it's a beautiful experience, a beautiful tale, and I think a lot of people, I think get caught up in trying to review all the aspects of something. We only saw one guy give this a 10. When we looked at Famitsu, there's 9, 9, 8. I think they're missing the picture.
I when I see something like archaic and overly simple, I just always remember people on Facebook having a discussion about video games or whatever, and somebody goes, apropos of nothing, I should add, said, uh, Earthbound's inventory system is really bad. It's like, oh, if like some gamers, like if they're playing these games and they see, if they see Dragon Quest V and they're like, the monster taming system, the numbers just weren't, I didn't like the way that some of the monsters progressed. It didn't make sense to me. It's like man, you just don't see it. Like you just you're not seeing the forest for the trees, man. Like this is it's like an archaic system. It's like, okay, but what about the story? What about like what it was trying to do? Like this grand adventure, this beautiful story. And it's like, yeah, but I like it when my main hero I didn't like that he uses Kaswoosh. Like I thought it would have been better if he had like more of the zap skills. Like just all those like little weird details. Like why do you look at that? Like that's every game back then is going to be archaic. Every game is going to be archaic at some point because time just constantly moves forward. So don't focus on how did the menus play out in this game, or like could you imagine like you're like Tecmo Bowl, I guess it's okay, but it's kind of date like the graphics are a little muddy. Like you don't. I always think that that's so annoying when these companies will say stuff like archaic and so it's nonsense. I think the
Take
game.
that from an IGN review, though.
Yeah,
Like, what do you expect them to say?
right. It's
I think I also want
incredible.
to note that they're talking about this. This is a review of the DS version.
Has to be, yeah.
This is the Super Famicom version wasn't out by now. I mean, was this really that outdated by 2008, 2009?
It probably was. I mean at that point the games we're seeing. I'm trying to think of what games were coming out at that time
Let's
that
just
were.
compare, say, Pokemon, right? Like Pokemon has been out for a while.
Yeah, the
Because
newer
we
Pokemon's
keep
probably
going to
had
the Monster Tamer thing.
more quality of life improvements. I mean, Dragon Quest V has plenty, but new Pokemon's might have more, I guess. But like, it's obviously a remake. Like you're playing a game that came out forever ago, so you gotta understand that. I don't know.
Let's, I guess, even say like we'll do the game darling of the century, Final Fantasy VII, at that point. Because the big thing is always like, I guess if you're going to talk about loss in a game, like what's your name?
Aerith.
Oh, Aerith. Yeah, the Aerith passing is like one of the biggest moments in gaming, and if you compare it to that, I still think that this is way more felt than that. I think Aerith was just like a random ass flower girl. Like I didn't have attachment to her, and Cloud shrugs her off half the game.
I 100% agree. I think this is way better done than Final Fantasy VII. But we're not allowed to say that, so I'll have to cut that out of the podcast. um, let's talk about the future iterations being influenced by this. We get monster taming, and this is 1992. Pokemon comes out 96, 95.
First one on the Game Boy. I don't know the year.
It's one of those years. Well, I mean, we have SMT that had demon taming, so that I don't think we could argue that this one did monsters first. But if Pokemon were inspired by this or SMT, it's clearly more this, I would think. And then this even spawned its own Dragon Quest monsters. So I don't I don't know that this really inspired Pokemon. From what I could gather, they said it's more inspired by bug collecting.
Mm.
So I don't know, but probably some gameplay mechanics they took from this, and then Dragon Quest Monsters, I would argue, is better than Pokemon in a lot of ways. What about you? You one of your early games was Dragon Quest Monsters, wasn't it?
That's the first technical Dragon Quest I beat, not the first mainline game. But yeah, I played that when it first came out on the Game Boy Color, and it was incredible. And I loved the monsters and the earned difficulty of it compared to Pokemon. It's just such a different experience. It basically is like kind of, it's almost like Dragon Quest One, adventuring system combined with the taming system in 5. And more monsters throw themselves at you, so it's a little bit easier. Um, but as far as like influencing the genre or influencing RPGs, uh, it's hard to say because like Dragon Quest IV basically birthed mystery dungeon games in a sense.
Yeah.
Right? Dragon Quest V birthed monster taming games with the 2.7 million sales. Maybe.
Cool.
Could be elements that were adopted from it. We'd have to do more research into it. I think where Dragon Quest V's influence really lays is in setting the foundation for the rest of the series, in really having that emotion-laden plot that Yuji Horii had set out to write. He is the writer. He is the writer for the game. All things concept, plot, etc. He had been talking about having this heartfelt experience and journey since the first game. And I don't know about you, but like this is the first one that like I really felt that genuine sort of connection with. 4, in a different sense, I did. I did like the characters, but I think I was so much more invested into just the overall plot and story. This was basically the work of an auteur. It was really well done, and though I think the ending was a bit rushed, I think that this set the tone and is probably responsible for like why a lot of people really love Dragon Quest VIII so much. Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
goes into some of those writing elements there too.
Well, what's different about this is I think I like eight's stuff better, just in general. Like I like their story better. I like the characters better. But what was weird about 8, and now when I think about it in retrospect, is that 8 had much to me a lot more emotional moments, but like they were external. Like they weren't you, like your struggles. They were generally other people's struggles that you were helping them resolve. There was a really good quest in 8. It's like one of the best quests I think in video games, about helping a king with his grief of his past wife. That I cannot wait
Yeah.
to talk about that. It's
It's gonna be great.
Jesus. Talk about crying in video games. Oh my god. Um, but that's like helping somebody else. That's like somebody else's story that you're kind of helping them through. This one, everything is so internalized. Like everything is so about your journey and the things that you go through. And I don't know that there's another game that embraces suffering like this game does. Just the torment that you go through and the loss that you endure is so different. And I don't know that another Dragon Quest, maybe, I don't want to spoil them, but there are some, but maybe some of them touch on it. But this one, more so than any other Dragon Quest, really has that personal struggle. And I don't know if that got carried through to the other games.
I mean, if you look at this strictly from a writing perspective, I argue this is a masterpiece. Like I just, it's hard because that ending still throws me off a bit. If I was to define masterpiece, it's just so perfectly done that like I don't know if I'd change anything about it. Maybe I would change some things in the end, but honestly, it didn't matter because it was just so damn good by the end. It's just one of the most memorable damn games I've played, and I think concept-wise, yeah, they probably tried to change it a bit going forward. 7 is very much about like other people's struggles, going to islands and helping them with their problems, and apparently 8 too, and 11 I'm curious like to get more into, but you know, I don't know. I don't know that this had like if this had an impact on the genre, it's that like it set the bar so damn high for
Hmm.
RPGs going forward that none would ever meet it again. Me, it's just a game in its own class.
Yeah,
Can't compare anything to it.
yeah, it's an anomaly. None of them even want to go through the journey of life. Like very few games even. I don't even know if I could name you a game besides
Where
this
you
one.
start as like a kid and then you work your way to, I could
Maybe Fable.
more Mortal Kombat Deception.
Maybe that.
Doesn't count.
Well, um, God, we have to talk about this now. Uh, speaking of emotional stories, sometimes they become cinematic. Dragon Quest V had a movie very recently. It was in 2019. It's called Dragon Quest: Your Story. This was it was released in Japan. And they actually got a cinematic release, theater release. We didn't get that. We did get a Netflix release, which is probably just as good. Who knows? Um, Mixed reception, high amount of sales. You might have that data.
25th, or is in the top 25 highest grossing films in Japan that year.
But the fans did not leave happy.
We're pissed that they used the live action people or like playing the roles to do the voice acting and not professional voice actors. Then they were also pissed that it had this kind of digitized look and not the typical Akira Toriyama, I guess, anime style. Which is very interesting if you compare it to like Demon Slayer, which came out this year and like a box office success.
What did you think of Drag? We watched this together a while
We
ago.
laughed,
We had a good time.
cried,
what
tears of
did
joy,
what did you
tears
think?
of
What did you think of Dragon Quest: Your Story? Was it your story?
my story. My story as a Dragon Quest fan, a
Yeah.
Dragon Quest V fan. Listen, I'm glad they made a movie out of a Dragon Quest game. Like, it's a success. I'm happy about that. I'm not happy about when you take one of the most beloved, intricate, special plots that should be conveyed to a worldwide audience, and you reduce it down to, oh, but secretly I was just actually playing the video game, and really I'm going to go back in the game and then beat the end boss, and it's going to be all good. It just kind of diminishes the impact of what was otherwise a great story, and instead just makes it a story. You know what I mean?
Well, I think a lot of people's, and mine included. Well, for one, I actually thought it was really bad. I did not actually think any of it was. I thought it was very rushed, which it would have to be to condense it into a movie like that. It's almost like a movie trailer that happens to be 2 hours long or however long it was. Um, I thought that was just terrible. It was it was pretty awful to sit through. But the ending where it turns out that and I'm gonna spoil it, but I don't give a shit. Like it's in a simulation, like a VR headset kind of thing. It was so masturbatory. It was just like the end of the movie. Oh, you're expecting he actually completed his hero's journey? No, you will eventually, but not in this movie because this movie is just about how great Dragon Quest is. Isn't Dragon Quest important to you? Don't you love Dragon Quest? That's really what it's all about. It's just our love for Dragon Quest. Isn't it great? Oh my god. I hated this movie so much. And I remember
It reminds me of like the Wii, right? Like when you see like people's hands on the box art and stuff.
yeah.
If I hadn't played Dragon Quest V up to this point, I don't know. I don't know. I probably would have felt weird about it too, but like, um, gosh, I loved the game when I played it. And it was great to see throwbacks, these moments, and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. I didn't remember when somebody dragged his hand and then pulled the guy out of the, or like froze the screen, and then suddenly, oh nope, mom's not really dead, or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh god, dumb.
Yeah,
Dumb.
it was just, but I don't know. I don't know how you do a Dragon Quest movie. It just doesn't like the creator himself said. Isn't that ironic that we in this thing we had the creator originally saying that there's no reason to make this a movie or an anime or whatever, and then this is the only one they made an anime or a movie of. I guess it's not an anime, but whatever. And they didn't even use Akira Toriyama for it. Weird. Really, just a weird footnote in Dragon Quest history. But if you got Netflix, check it out if you want. It's not very good. You could sit through it pretty quickly. All right, you're our buying guide of Dragon Quest. You got your pulse on the market. Hit us up. How much do each of these versions cost if you wanted to get your hands on Dragon Quest V?
Sure. So you may be asking yourself, gee, Dragon Quest V sounds like a splendid game. How might I go about experiencing this wonder of turn-based RPGs? Well, for most part, you can't because it's in Japanese, but we're going to go over the options and as they range from earliest release to most modern. On the Super Famicom, where the game originally released, cartridges run the price tab of just about $15, and if you want to get it boxed, I think it's about like 30 or so. However, if you don't have a Super Famicom or a Retron 5 to play Super Famicom games, and you don't want to read the text in Japanese because you can't, then you can get a fan translation of the SNES cart for about $30. You also get a repro of the box art for like 40. Now, if you're a bit more adventurous and you want to experience the 3D landscapes of the PS2 version, you can acquire that for about $20, but I've seen it really low. This was a high-selling game in Japan, but you would need a Japanese PS2. I am aware that you can do some patches to the experience. I don't know, maybe you could talk more about that. I'm not sure the mechanisms for doing so, but that would be probably the ultimate way to experience Dragon Quest V. On the DS, in Japan, there were a lot of copies of this game, I think in the millions. And if you want to get a copy, it's about $15 complete. However, if you exist in the US, a cartridge today will cost you $115, making it one of the most expensive Dragon Quests to collect. However, if you are in the US, you don't have a Super Famicom, you don't have a Super Nintendo, you don't have a DS, and $115 to blow on a cartridge only, you can download the iOS port for $15.
Woo! I recommend it. It's really good.
It's pretty good. For what it is, I mean, like the people who reviewed the iOS version seem to really like it. They're pretty consistent. Square Enix seems to love their phone audience, so they treat them well. There was a repro of this card at one point, but I think that the movie coincided with the higher price tab for the games. Dragon Quest 11 as well.
Big question. We played 1 through 4 so far. Technically, we played more, but
5
or 1 through 5. Yeah. Is 5 the best so far?
Hell yeah.
And it's funny, we say that in every one of these. They just keep getting better. Like this is the best one so far.
It's just the best. Like it's the best for different reasons, not gameplay reasons, which like 3 or 4 might even be the best for those reasons. But and just in terms of like what Dragon Quest represents and like this idea of like a story arc and like, you know, your characters going on a journey to save the world and also to save your loved ones. Like this is the most felt. It's just the most fleshed out. It's the most conceived, well-rounded. It's beautiful. The OST just like brings me to like awe, tears every time. Anytime you enter a cave or something, it starts off like a kind of gentle flutter. And it's just like you really do feel like the grandiosity of everything, of the castles, of the caves, of just the demons and the monsters as they take your family away from you and just tear this world apart. And you are witness to it, and eventually find yourself witnessing the resolution of it. And I love it for that.
I couldn't have said it better. This is the best one so far. It's I can't see how you would argue any of the other ones. Like later on, and I'll ask that next. But later on, I could see I have different opinions. But I don't think any of them can compare to this one. You're right. I think the community might be more 3 if you're talking about gameplay because of the job system. But from every other perspective, Dragon Quest V is the best, and I think in general most people look at it that way too. How do you think? From what I know, we haven't finished everything going forward, but you've dabbled in some of it. How do you think it compares to some of the newer releases?
Let me make a disclaimer. I don't know how qualified I am to make the assessment because I am 30 hours into 8 and I'm 10 hours into 11. So like, and these are big games
You've
on
beaten
the
7.
100-hour. I've beaten 7. True. But 5 is just of a different class. It's the thing is like you don't see games like this. You know how you said Chrono Trigger for you is like the game that just like you were seeking that, right? You wanted that like just that beautiful kind of experience in every RPG that you play from then on out. Like I almost like this is almost like a work of art. Like there's a clear storyline and message and purpose, and it really makes you reflect and think about your own life. How the hell do video games do that?
Yeah. Even now.
No. Dragon Quest V did it. And so um you know, I put this one in a pedestal in a sense. It's only 25 hours compared to like the hundreds or so you get in the future ones, but what it's able to do in those 25 hours is powerful. This is a powerful game. It's profound and it speaks to me. So to me, I ranked it. I ranked it number 1 when I did the Turbo Zone video for a reason. Because I have not, even in my time with those other games, they didn't speak to me in the way that this one did.
I don't know. It's very different. It's definitely a different experience. I'd be curious. We're replaying them, so maybe that's what I'll have to save it for. But I put 8, 11. Depending on the day, I could put 6 and 7 over it. But it's hard, like you said, because 5 is just different. Like it's not. It gives you a different experience than those. So it almost depends. Like, do you value gameplay over story? I don't. It's a hard question to answer. So yeah, no, it's tough. It's very tough.
From a story perspective alone, where do you rank 5?
Story alone, 5 has to be in the top 3. The other thing about its story is that it's just a very different story. Like it is. I don't necessarily love the idea of traveling from a kid to an adult. I wouldn't want that from every RPG I play. So I'm happy that it's the only one. In a way, I'm happy that it's the only one here that does it. I'm surprised nobody else has tried it. It's like somebody else, like some Final Fantasy should try that, but no, they won't. But yeah, I don't know. On the right day, it could be number 1 in terms of pure story. I think I like 8's more. I think I like 8 maybe the most from a story perspective. Maybe 11, but 11 is very bloated. But it has the most complex story probably. So I don't know. You probably, from a pure story perspective, probably 5 is the best. You could argue that. It's hard though.
It is. They're all great. I love them, and I love being here to archive them with you.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on Dragon Quest V you want to leave our viewers with?
If you haven't played it, I would work to play it. It's one of the best damn video games that exist. I cannot get over that. Like I know maybe it's just that the themes resonate with me more than they do with other people. But if I were you, if I were a listener at home and I was craving that solo experience to really connect and to think deeper about my own life, about value of people within it from a video game, from the RPG systems, I understand that the gameplay is not going to be for everybody. Not everybody even likes turn-based RPGs. But if you're looking for a really good story in a video game, Dragon Quest V has it. And I almost like wouldn't tell people to play it first, just so like you can get used to the formula, and just and then you can really appreciate 5. See if you can beat another one first, and then come back and do 5, because when you play this, you should take your time. You should enjoy it. I'm playing SMT 5 right now, and I'm actually nostalgic about. I kind of want to go back to Dragon Quest. I wish there was more. I wish there's more in 5 that I could have dabbled into. And I know there's like a fun dungeon at the end, but it's I still, even after my second playthrough, after 5 years later, I still look back so fondly on it, and I hope that more people experience it and talk to me about it and let me know, did you like it and what did you think? But give it a fair shot, you know, and embrace what it does.
Tell us who you married.
Who else did I what?
No, if you play it, tell us who you married.
Oh. Tell us why you picked
Bianca.
Deborah.
Deborah, yeah. If you pick Deborah, we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, everything. Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a hard one not to recommend if you want to play a Dragon Quest game. I think you'd be fine starting with it. I think especially with like the earliest parts of it, it eases you into it. It's not very hard and kind of teaches you the ropes. Um, yeah, you can't really go wrong with this one. There's no real negative to it. Lots of freedom. So I say go for it if you want to try it. 5 is a great place to jump in. 5 or 11, honestly. But yeah, good game, and I'm excited that we get to do 6 next. Kind of the black sheep of this trilogy, maybe of this entire series. Uh, I think maybe undeservedly so. I think there's good qualities to it, and I'm excited to play through it again.
Okay. Well, time will tell. This is 6 will be the game that I've invested the second least amount of time into, with 9 following closely behind with like 10 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, Spencer, it's great to be here and throw this one in the archive.
Absolutely. As you just hinted at, we can consider Dragon Quest V archived. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.